Our initiative related to this actually began several years ago when we first trained our senior leadership staff in the lean principles. And about 6 months later, after implementing what we had learned, we found that process to have been so successful that we trained our next layer of management.
And one of the things that was really important to me from a leadership standpoint was to have an organization that was not just top down, but was an organization that had a lot of ownership. And as we were looking from an organizational standpoint at the next steps, what goes beyond Focus PDCA and what were the next things we wanted to do, we recognized that Lean Six Sigma was a direction that we had a lot of interest in.
I think the thing that makes it so neat here at Good Samaritan is that we're training all of our employees at the yellow belt level, and we're just really emphasizing to them that we want to empower them and we want them to be able to be the ones to come up with the ideas and make those suggestions and help with those improvements. Our training is a 2-day training. We go through several different topics. We kind of combine Lean and Six Sigma together, so we go through the origins and terminology of both. We hit on some of the main topics.
Everyone can kind of speak the same language because we've all been to the yellow belt training, so now we can bring that back to our unit. And I mean, it's just a natural response anymore as to if someone is thinking, okay, I'm taking like 20 steps here to do a task, how can I not do that?
I will comment that we've had a lot of employees that weren't sure about the training. You know, they're like, oh no, I have to go to this 2-day training. And we get lots of comments that, wow, that was really interesting and I really enjoyed it. And it really did help me to look at things different in my department.
The yellow belt training has brought out a different attitude throughout our department and then also into other departments. Everyone has gone to the same training, so they know when you say, hey, I have a yellow belt idea, then no matter who they're talking to throughout the hospital, we know what they're talking about.
We ended up with well over 1,300 different yellow belt projects that all stemmed from the employees, that all came from the individuals that went through the yellow belt training.
The number of ideas that are generated, whether they're good or bad or indifferent, is tremendous. And the second thing is that it gives the employees a voice that maybe they feel like they didn't have in the past.
We've really noticed that there's been a transition in our culture. Employees look for those opportunities in their work areas. They look for them in other work areas.
Now you can freely go to other departments and say, this idea was brought up, can you maybe help us make changes? And so it really builds teamwork within the hospital because everybody's working together and we've all got that common goal.
It's not unusual for some employees who work in more than one area to ask the question, why do we do this one way in this department and do it a different way in the other department? And those are questions that we want them to ask because it forces us to look and ask ourselves, why do we do that way? We should be standardizing as much of our processes and operations as we can.
Well, I think the thing that I am most proud of is the fact that all of our employees have really taken this as a challenge and have owned it to the point where we now have 35 plus green belts trained. We have 11 to 12 black belts. We have an independent black belt department. And it's all about getting individuals to really own what we're doing.
The bottom line is it's really making things better for the patient, because if we can take care of a patient in the same or better quality with only 5 steps rather than 10, I mean that's better for the patient because it's really exceeding their expectations on our expediency and caring for their needs. So I think there's an excitement that's being generated in the organization as more and more folks really put into practice what they've learned in this yellow belt training.